So, Berto, it is the end of December. It's the holiday season, and I just want to kick back with my good pal Humberto and just do a Tough or Bluff episode. What do you do? What do you say?
What do? I do say, yay.
This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor, and that is tough. Who are you, Berto?
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I am a stand-up comedian trainer, and that might be tough or bluff.
So for those who don't know, Tough or Bluff is a true or false question. And we came up with Tough or Bluff 12 years ago. I threw it out to the gang. I said, I want to do this thing called true or false, but I don't want to call it true or false. And Berto came up. I said, something bluff, because we call false bluff, because that's essentially what we're trying to do. And then Berto said, how about tough or bluff? Because he wanted to rhyme.
Which makes no sense.
I immediately hated it, but it stuck. But so here we are. Tough or bluff, Berto. About 4% of people get no pleasure from music. Tough or bluff, Berto.
4%?
4% of people get no pleasure from music.
Yeah, I've heard about this. I am going to go tough. And sadly, I feel bad for them.
Yeah, it's tough. Do you know anyone who doesn't take pleasure in music?
Well, okay. Probably not clinically, but I have had conversations, very frustrating conversations with people where I'm like, one of them, I specifically remember this gal, I think we were at the W or something. And I'm like, sorry, do you listen to music? It's like, when I go dancing or whatever. I'm like, I'm huge into the Beatles. And she's like, I hate the Beatles. Like, you hate the Beatles? What do you mean you hate the Beatles? I thought you weren't into music. I know, but I hate the Beatles. Why do you hate the Beatles? It's just like, it's this kind of music that is old and sugary and dumb. And I was on the verge of tears, and I was like, what have you heard in your mind? What does the Beatles sound like? And, she couldn't give me any examples. She couldn't even remember any of the names. I could only hope that she was thinking of the very early songs, and it represented the 50s, 60s stuff. But it was one of the most frustrating conversations. And in my mind, I'm like, she gets no enjoyment out of music.
Yeah, I've heard similar things. I think younger people, they come from a different world. Younger people, they were raised on a completely different aesthetic with pop music. And I think you and I were raised on a pop music aesthetic that the Beatles was included in. And I've heard some people refer to the Beatles music as children's music. And I find that to be one of the dumbest things. But when you think about some of their songs, absolutely.
Right. Yellow Submarine.
Yeah. Octopus's Garden. Some of the most annoying Beatles songs, honestly, are those songs. And I get that. And if that's all you've heard, then for sure. But at the same time, the full catalog of the Beatles, I would not characterize as children's music. The other thing is that if you grew up with hip hop, and that was your 99% of the stuff you heard was either hip hop or hip hop influenced, then I'm just going to take a guess and think that the Beatles or just anything outside of hip hop will just sound old and dumb and out of fashion and just not your thing. In the same way that for some people who grew up before us, when they hear hip hop, it sounds stupid to them. You know what I mean? Like you and I grew up right in between, where we can both appreciate before and after hip hop.
Yep.
But yeah, I've met people who don't like and get no pleasure in music. In fact, law of averages, there's people listening right now who might identify as one of those 4% people. It's essentially 1 in 25 people, right? So the thing that you won't hear from them is they won't admit it because no one understands them, and they'll be shy about it. But yeah, I think I've met one person like this, and they just seemed they seem to either just it's like nails on a chalkboard to them, a lot of music, or they don't get why other people like music so much, so it annoys them at other people, or they have some kind of music dyslexia that when they hear music it's all jumbled up or something. Anyway, tough or bluff, Berto. Even though teen marijuana use has been declining in recent years, it went up among teens in Washington state after legalization. Tough or bluff?
Interesting. So there's the aspect of it having been declining. there's the aspect of it going up for teens in Washington state after legalization.
Right, because that was the worry is like, well, if you make it legal, then kids are going to use pot, and we can't legalize pot. And then the other people were saying, no, that's not going to happen. So this is to do with that.
Yeah, I'm going to go bluff because I have a sense that, I'm going to go bluff because I think that if it had been going in decline, unless that's the bluff, but if it had been going on decline already, I have some faith that the legalization aspect didn't necessarily slow down that trend. So I'm going to go bluff.
It's tough. Teen marijuana use has been declining in recent years. And then when it became legalized among teenagers, specifically 10th graders in Washington state, marijuana use increased by 4%. Between 2013 and 2015.
I guess it makes sense because if they legalized alcohol for teens.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. In fact, I believe it increased for all age groups.
Yeah.
Many people are just like, well, if it's legal now, let's go for it.
That's true.
Tougher bluff. Getting revenge on someone can improve your mood. Tougher bluff. Getting revenge on someone can improve your mood.
Wow. Depending on the time window we're talking about, I suppose if you're really like in a bad mood day after day, like that person really crossed me. I suppose when you go and you paint their tires with little hearts, that all of a sudden you'll have an afternoon of bliss. But I have a feeling that the next day you'll feel empty. So in the long run, I'm going to go bluff. It doesn't improve your mood.
It's tough. Researchers asked people to write an essay. The researchers gave them a fake feedback from a fake person saying that the essay was terrible. So the researchers say, hey, write an essay. Mean. So you write an essay, and then some reviewer writes on the essay, this is terrible. Afterwards, the participants were allowed to stick pins in a voodoo doll that represented this unkind reader. Researchers measured participants' mood before and after they stuck pins in the voodoo doll and found that using the voodoo doll significantly improved participants' moods.
I'm calling shenanigans. That's not the same as getting revenge. That's basically a placebo effect that has no actual consequences unless they happen to be in the minority that fully believes that thing's going to do something. If they actually were inflicting harm in some way to the person, that's where I'm going to say that maybe they'll feel temporary relief, but then in the long run, they'll feel bad. So I'm calling shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, how do you devise a research study ethically that involves actually taking revenge on other human beings? That would be a hard thing to do. Tougher bluff, Berto. Legalized same-sex marriage has decreased teen suicide rates. Tougher bluff.
I'm going to go tough because if you were a teen who identified gay, bisexual, in some other way than the straight, and you felt that there were no real options for a life together with someone and like all the benefits legally and taxes and everything, and that you could be seen as a normal member of society, that would be quite depressing. It could lead potentially some people to suicide. So by seeing that, oh wait, I am normal. I can have a normal life. I feel like that might lift their self-feelings. And so, yeah, that's my stance.
It's true. It's tough.
Yeah.
In the 32 states that passed same-sex marriage laws back in the day before it was legalized across the country, suicide attempts dropped 7% among all students and 14% among those who identified as gay, lesbian, or bisexual.
That's huge.
And there were no significant change in suicide rates in states that didn't pass the same-sex marriage laws, which of course makes sense, and you're an immoral person if you do not support that on a variety of levels, not only for suicide rates, but also because it is a no-duh.
Yeah, imagine if you're pro-life, you would want to be pro people not committing suicide, right?
Yeah, well, tougher bluff, Berto. Physicians are more likely to prescribe antibiotics when they believe their patients expect it, even if they think the patient's infection is unlikely to be bacterial. Tougher bluff. So So you have infections, some are bacterial, some are not. And if it's bacterial, then if there's evidence of bacterial infection, then you prescribe an antibiotic. But some infections will not respond to an antibiotic. But so the question is, physicians are more likely to prescribe antibiotics when they believe their patients expect it, tough or bluff?
Oh, I see. When they believe the patient expects that they will prescribe it.
Right.
That's an interesting one. I at first was thinking, because I have experienced where I have had to tell my doctor, not my current doctor, thankfully, like, what if I don't take the antibiotic since we're not sure, like, and then they like backed off. They're like, well, if you don't want to take it, it's probably okay. But if you keep having these symptoms, you might want to take it. Because I was like, I don't think, and I know that they overprescribe. But in the case where the patient wants it or believes they should have it, does it influence the doctor? It shouldn't. They should make their decision based. But I'm going to go tough. It does influence their decision.
Yeah, absolutely. It is tough. And yes, it is a problem that a doctor would change their treatment based on patient expectation rather than treating the patient with the most evidence-based treatment protocol.
Why'd you amputate their leg? Well, I didn't really need to, but they thought I should.
I mean, there are literal cases like that where stuff like that happens, where you would say, well, you wouldn't go that far. No, there's plenty of situations like that.
That's terrible.
Tough or bluff, Berto, witnessed domestic violence as children is associated with adult psychopathy, such as pathological lying and manipulation. Tough or bluff? What do you think?
Witness child abuse. Yeah.
No, witness domestic violence. So you're a child, you witness violence between the parents. That's associated with being a psychopath as an adult.
That's tough, but I mean, it's hard. But I am still going to go tough because I think that you probably end up having such a messed up sense of boundaries and of right and wrong, and I'm going to go tough.
Yeah, it's tough. It's pretty obvious to me.
Yeah.
When you're abused or when you witness violence as a child, you're more likely to develop all sorts of things, including psychopathy. Tough or bluff, Berto, coming up with a lie only takes 0.115 seconds. Longer than telling the truth. Sorry. Coming up with a lie
I see. Okay.
takes only 0.1 seconds longer than telling the truth. Tough or bluff?
Oh, that's a tougher question because
that's a very short amount of time.
It's very short amount of time, and I would imagine that it has big variance depending on the person. For example,
but on average,
On average. So in other words, the split decision that happens that I'm gonna veer off and not say, "Wow, does it happen that fast?" Yeah, I guess so, because the whole movie scene where the person's vacillating. I think if someone's going to lie, they lie. So I'm going to go tough.
Yep, tough. Researchers analyzed a bunch of studies and found that participants took an average of 115 milliseconds or 0.1 second longer to produce a lie than telling a truth.
That's crazy.
Tough or bluff, Berto. People with anxiety or depression have been found to be twice as likely to have post-surgical wound complication. Tough or bluff?
Ooh.
Post-surgical wound complication, anxiety, depression, twice as likely. Not just
as likely.
Twice as likely to have post-surgical wound complication.
I am afraid it's tough because they're having so many mental issues with it that they might even not follow the instructions because they're so worried. They might bother it. And then since your brain is not feeling well, it irritates everything. It inflames everything. And yet, I'm going to give a hopeful bluff.
Yeah, it's bluff. It's
thank goodness.
1.2 times, so it's
but it's still worse.
It's still worse, but not twice.
But it's not twice, yes.
Tough or bluff, Berto. Levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, are lowest in the morning. Tough or bluff?
Yeah, at least that's my experience with it. When I wake up, especially after a good night's rest. So I'll say if you didn't sleep well or pull an all-nighter, that's different. But if you slept well, I'm going to say tough because you wake up, you feel refreshed, and then towards the end of the day, everything's mounting, you're tired, so yes. Lower in the morning, tough.
It's bluff, it's the opposite. It's highest in the morning, and it decreases throughout the day. Yeah. The reason, if I remember my biology, is that your body has evolved to stress yourself out to get you out of bed. That in order to wake up, your body is flooded with a bunch of stress hormones. Because we don't want to equate stress hormone with negativity.
Yeah.
When we're running a marathon, or you're just running, or you're picking up your groceries and bringing them into the house, your body will use stress hormone to kind of get you going, and to get you going in the morning, it needs that. So cortisol,
that makes sense,
will happen in the
I
morning.
didn't think about that. Yeah, because the word stress sounds bad, but your body needs that stress.
Yeah, our body likes stress when we need it, just not in a constant state of stress.
That's right.
Tougher bluff. Married people have lower levels of cortisol, stress hormone, than single people do. Tougher bluff. Married people, lower cortisol.
Right. I've seen those studies. I'm sure we've done tougher bluffs about longevity. There seems to be some correlation to marriage and longevity, meaning positive correlation. So I'm going to go, it's lower levels of cortisol in married couples. Tough.
It's tough.
Okay.
But it probably depends on the quality of the marriage, but on average, yes.
Sure.
People in relationships have lower levels of stress hormone. Tougher bluff. Among LGBTQ teens, transgender girls, male to female, experience the greatest amount of abuse, child abuse, physical, sexual abuse, bullying. Tough or bluff. So among LGBTQ, so you have lesbians, gays, bisexual, trans, queer teens, transgender girls experience the greatest amount of abuse. Tough or bluff.
When pardon my ignorance. A transgender girl, is that someone that used to be male who is now a girl, or someone who was a girl who is now male?
Someone who was born male and
is now a girl.
Is a girl, yeah.
Is a female. Okay, got it. Transgender girls experience the greatest level of abuse. I could see that. Yes, I'm gonna go tough.
Yeah. And to be clear, I mean born physically male in the way that we identify as physically male.
Yeah. But I'm going to go tough because I'm imagining that has, and I'm totally guessing here, but it's like, ooh, it's got even more taboo. It's like, wait a minute, you were born a man and now you need to have this operation and now you're a girl. And if I have my own mental problems where I'm attracted to, like, I'm just going to go tough.
Yeah, it's tough for probably the reasons that you alluded to. For all the various different people are more prone to being victimized by abuse for stigma and all sorts of reasons, LGBTQ teenagers. But yes, the transgender girls are the most likely due to having all versions of oppression and stereotyping and prejudice piled onto them. Because if you're a female to male transgender, if you're a transgender boy, at least you're now part of a gender that has power, you know? It's like, well, of course you want to be a boy because boys are awesome, you know, but for a boy to want, you know, for someone that looks like a boy to people to want to be a girl, it's just like, what are you doing?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. 90% of people, tougher bluff, 90% of people who know negative future events. 90% of people want to know negative future events, such as how they're going to die. Tougher bluff.
Oh, it can't be 90%. I'm going to go bluff, and I'm going to say it's like 40%.
It's 10%. It is bluff.
Okay, good.
It's
even lower than I thought. Good.
Yeah, 90% don't want to know how they're going to die and other negative psychological events. Tougher bluff, Berto. After getting in a car accident, playing Tetris can help reduce the risk of developing PTSD. Tougher bluff. After getting in a car accident, playing Tetris can help reduce the risk of developing PTSD. Tough or bluff?
Tetris specifically. I'm sure there's other similar games. I like it. I mean, I'm going to go tough because Tetris is a game where you have to pay really good attention. Like, you got to be super focused. And I guess, you could metaphorically think of the falling pieces as cars crashing, but at the same time, it's pretty divorced from the physical realities. And so it distracts you, keeps you focused on something else. It gives you a goal because you want to get better. So I'm going to go tough. It helps you.
Yes, it is tough. Researchers tested the intervention on patients waiting in a hospital emergency room within 6 hours after being in a car accident. Participants who played Tetris reported 62% fewer intrusive memories in the week after the event. Yeah.
That's awesome. I wish I would have known that when I had my car crash in 1993, because I had a lot of PTSD of that.
Yeah. Researchers hypothesized that concentrating on a game could help disrupt memory consolidation in the aftermath of a trauma. Yeah. I mean, it's just one study, so who knows, but it does lend itself towards intervention. Tougher bluff, Berto. Compared to conservatives, liberals have more ability to recognize that one's beliefs might be wrong. Tougher bluff. Compared to conservatives, liberals have more ability to recognize that one's beliefs might be wrong. Tougher bluff.
I haven't seen a study like that. So I'm going to go bluff on that one because I feel like the determinant factor for seeing if you're right or wrong would probably have more to do with things like, sort of like your personality type or something. But anyways, I'm going to go bluff.
Yeah, exactly. It's bluff. Researchers found no difference between liberals and conservatives in their ability to recognize that their beliefs might be wrong. And this is anecdotally makes sense to me. Everyone, regardless of political leanings, has a hard time evaluating their belief system. That's just everybody.
I do have a different hypothesis, though, but it has more to do with if people were raised in a dogmatic belief system of any kind, and I don't have proof, but I would bet that those folks might have a harder time sort of questioning their own beliefs.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's take a break. We get back. Let's do some more tougher bluffs. What do you say, Berto?
Let's do it.
Hey, deserving listeners, as you know, I'm constantly recommending that people go to therapy. We all need therapy from time to time. One of the options available that is definitely worth checking out is BetterHelp.com. So if you're looking for a therapist, I would give it a try by going to BetterHelp.com/Kirk. Make sure you use the /Kirk because you get 10% off your first month and it helps us out. I get a lot of emails from you saying that you're looking for a therapist. As you watch these videos, I know many of you have been motivated to find your own therapist, but I know it can be really hard to find a good one to work with. Like I said, one of the options available to try is BetterHelp.com/Kirk. And you should know that this service is available to clients worldwide, which is amazing. I've been told that you can start communicating with your therapist in under 24 hours. You can message with your counselor anytime. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. And I've been told that it's often less expensive than in-person therapy. So go to BetterHelp.com/Kirk to get 10% off your first month of therapy today. So, Berto, I'm going to throw you a curveball. Do you have a gripe of wrath? Do you have a gripe?
Oh, a gripe of wrath. Oh, actually, I totally do. Totally do.
Okay, good.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So this is the thing. We're all pulling in this pandemic together and everything's okay and blah, blah, blah. I have a couple relatives, and I'm not going to name them. They're in Colombia, and I love them. I mean, they've always been great to me. So, I mean them only the best. But they are like mask and pandemic deniers. And they invited my dad over for a get-together. And this, again, in Colombia. And my dad, first of all, my dad is old. He's got medical problems. And he is a germaphobe. He's got anxiety and stuff. And so he didn't want to go because this is an indoor get-together with like 8 people or something, maskless. So he didn't want to go. But he went... And then as soon as he arrived, he was thinking, maybe they're all going to sit a little apart. And instead, everyone, in the typical Colombian fashion, hugging, kissing, close contact. And so my dad was relating this to me. I could feel for him because I'm, similar to him. But he's even more extreme. Like, if you think I'm a German, and so I was like, oh my gosh, he must have been going through so many bad feelings in his head as people are coming. And he, being my dad, who have you met, he is not afraid to draw a boundary in an awkward moment. So he did. He had to say, no, like I'm gonna be the Grinch who stole your Christmas right now. And then I wasn't there, but I'm sure it got sort of awkward. But then they also like, oh, that's him, whatever. But I'm ripe of wrath because like, why? Of course I want to see my family. Of course I want to hug everyone. But why? Why go through like the added stress and also force other people into that added stress? Even if it's your own belief that things are not, why impose that on other people?
Yeah, it's a very strange thing that it's almost like if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. Or, well, I literally had a friend of a friend say this. This is early in the days of the lockdown, that she was saying things like, well, these people are responsible people, or, these people are good people, essentially.
Right.
As if to say, like, their character meant they weren't infected with a microbe that doesn't care about your personality,
Right.
So I just thought, like, how does that make any sense? That doesn't inspire any confidence. But yeah, people, they just have a really hard time wrapping their head around how germs work, one, and two, how to balance that with social pressure, essentially just peer pressure. You show up at a thing. I'm sure everyone is like not dying, excuse the word
The word
usage,
choice.
to be infected.
Right.
But it's like, well, I don't want to be that person who refuses to hug someone. That's like one of the worst things you can do to a relative.
Right.
So I'm just going to hug. And now we have the worst pandemic of all time, much worse than it was back in the spring. It is, if ever there was a time when you were not supposed to do things and you're supposed to take all the precautions around the world, it is now, aside from a few lucky communities. It is raging, and people are dying at an unprecedented rate. And so, that would just drive me crazy to hear about relatives doing that. I'm proud of my family. I was a little bit worried, but it turns out everyone in my immediate family, no one even questioned it. No one said, so are we getting together for Thanksgiving? Are we getting together for Christmas? No one even brought it up. Everyone, and we are adamant get together people. Like, this is the first Thanksgiving and Christmas time that I haven't spent hours with my family.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So, well, you don't go to Bogota every year, right?
Oh, not in Bogota, but even up here. Like, as an example, actually, so my mom has this very good friend, and she freaked my brother out because what happens is every year for Thanksgiving, my mom's friend has this huge gathering in her house, and it's lovely, and I go every year, and there are tons of people there, and they're the age group that would be at most at risk, really.
Right.
Many of them with medical conditions stuff. So of course they didn't do it, right? But when she was talking on the phone with my brother, she, as a joke, but she's got this super dry sense of humor, was like, oh no, we had a lovely congregation. We had like 25 people, blah, blah, blah. And she said it totally straight, never corrected the record. So my brother was convinced that they had done that, and he was horrified. And so like I asked my mom, I'm like, Mom, I thought you said, and my mom's like, what? No, that she was kidding. No, absolutely not. Like, so, but it's that kind of thing. We didn't get to do that. We certainly didn't get to do that. My mom throws a huge party on the 25th with my brother, and we invite her friends, and then my friend Paul comes over with his kids. Like, it's a big deal. In fact, this will be the first Christmas since 1990 that me and Paul don't exchange gifts in this very elaborate fashion. It's gonna be, the tradition will be broken, except it won't be, because I'm sending him a digital Easter egg hunt to do. But still. And we're just going to, grin and bear it, because that's what you do.
Right. That's what you do. And it'll be over at some point, and then we can go back to normal. Tough or bluff, Berto? Feeling lonely can make your cold worse. Tough or bluff?
I like this one. I have had bad colds, my friend. Not so much this last year. I wonder why. I haven't had a single cold. Oh, knock on wood. But anyways, yeah. When I've had a really bad cold, I have felt like the only thing was if there was someone I can talk to, someone I can play a video game with, someone that might say a kind word to me. So being lonely would make me feel worse for sure.
No,
I'm gonna go.
feeling lonely can make your cold symptoms worse.
Yeah, I'm gonna go tough.
Okay. Yeah. It's tough. It actually.
Wait, what do you think I said? I said feeling lonely could make me feel worse.
Yeah, but I thought you meant emotionally worse.
Oh, no. I mean, literally worse. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Tough or bluff? Compared to religious people,
Was it tough? Was it tough?
Yeah, it's tough.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Expose them to colds.
Mind over body.
Those who felt lonely were no more likely to become sick, but lonely people reported significantly more severe symptoms.
Yeah. I could see that.
Tough or bluff, Berto? Compared to religious people, non-religious people have more ability to recognize that one's belief might be wrong. So it's similar to the previous one.
Okay. So that one, that's tough. I'm going to go tough, and it's hard because I grew up religious, very religious, and I had friends that were even more and wanted me to get even more, and even in very, very cultish groups of subsets of the religion. And when I was fully in it, I couldn't see that I was wrong. I had these like hours, like 10-hour long debates with people. I remember my friend Brian, I was trying to convince him that he was wrong because he was an atheist. I was like, no. And 10-hour debate. And I always was like, and my dad's an atheist. I was like, one day I will convince my dad, and I got to do it because his life depends on it, blah, blah. And I had debates about homosexuality when I was young in high school and stuff. I'm going to go tough because you are trained from the moment you can barely even talk or read that you can't trust your senses. Faith is where it's at. You got to believe without seeing, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, it's bluff. Researchers found no difference between religious and non-religious people in their ability to recognize that their beliefs might be wrong. I think that your hypothesis makes a lot of sense, but according to the data...
It's wrong according to the data.
Yeah, which, just really points to, I guess, this conclusion that you can make, which is that the ability to determine right versus wrong or fact versus fiction is independent of your political leanings, independent of your religious leanings. Now, it's a separate question as to whether religion is wrong or atheism is wrong. You understand? It's just a matter of, a religious person, can they generally understand fact from fiction, or can they generally evaluate their belief systems in a logical way? Or
it could actually, yeah.
Or can an atheist, is an atheist better at evaluating, at being critical of their own beliefs? Essentially, that's the quality.
Yeah.
And according to the data, religious people are no worse or better than an atheist person. Liberals are no better or worse than a conservative person.
Maybe it's like some humans are better at seeing that their beliefs might be different, wrong, whatever. Some aren't. And if they happen to be in a cult or a religion or something that they are trying to not be, maybe those people that have more ability to discern beliefs and things like that, maybe they're able to make a change better than the other types, but not because they were or were not in those belief systems. That's fascinating. I hadn't ever thought of it that it was not necessarily cause and effect, but rather, and like in my case, it took me till I was 30 to change my perspective on things. Is that because I have a harder time seeing when my beliefs are wrong? Maybe. Or maybe I was just good enough to change my beliefs. Who knows?
Yeah. And the thing I'll say generally is that people are very poor at challenging their own beliefs. And they're very, very good at pointing out when other people are wrong. We're very, very astute at pointing, we're very sure of ourselves that other people are wrong. We have a really hard time looking at ourselves and saying, this belief that I hold dear to me might have some problems. We are very bad at that.
Yep.
Tough or bluff, Berto. Looking surprised in a photo makes you look younger than if your face were smiling or just neutral. Tough or bluff. Looking surprised makes you look younger than if you were just smiling or looking neutral.
I'm going to go tough. When you're surprised, your eyes get bigger, your face might get thinner, and your mouth goes open like a baby's mouth. I guess. Whereas when you smile, you got wrinkles. When you're sad, you got wrinkles. So I'm going to go tough.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a weird study in Psychonomic Bulletin and Review. And instead of the duck pose, all the Instagrammers should be doing surprise face. But I just want to alert everyone that as I was reading this Tough or Bluff, Berto kept making this surprise face into the camera. I thought he was doing it for my benefit, and I'm like, you realize this is an audio podcast, but then I realized, no, he's looking at himself. He's like comparing.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide.
He did it like literally 8 times. And
I'm still doing it.
Yeah. Tough or Bluff, Berto. Smiling in photos makes you look 2 years older. Smiling in photos makes you look 2 years older. Tough or Bluff?
That seems so specific. Ugh, I'm going to go bluff on that because, I don't know. I mean, I know what I said just now about wrinkles, but like, I generally find that people, maybe it's just my disposition. When I see someone smiling in a photo, they look younger to me, but whatever. But either way, I'm going to go bluff. 2 years? What's that? No.
Yeah, it's tough. On average, when you smile in a photo, you are looking 2 years older than you would be rated as if you weren't smiling. Tough or Bluff, watching TV while eating can help children eat less and maintain a healthy weight. Tough or Bluff, watching TV while eating.
Bluff. Oh my gosh, bluff. This is the story of my life. I've talked about this before. I had this really unhealthy connection between food and television that was started when my mom left. And I developed this attachment where I would sit there late at night in front of the television, eating to fill the void, watching TV to fill the void. That can't be healthy.
Yeah, it's bluff. It's bluff. Having a strong dinner routine and not watching TV or other media during dinner can help children maintain a healthy weight. Let's see. Tough or Bluff, Berto? Fathers behave the same with their toddlers regardless of the toddler's gender. Fathers behave the same with their toddlers regardless of the toddler's gender. Tough or Bluff? So we're talking very young children, a year old, this kind of thing.
I'm gonna go bluff. I could imagine. Did you say parents or no? You said fathers.
Fathers, yeah.
Yeah, I could imagine fathers being like, the kid. See, even I would say kid, even though it might be a girl or a boy, but I would mean boy. See, I'm already doing it. I'd say like the boy's gotta get tough. It's okay. Whereas I would imagine like, the little princess can't be bothered by humanity and her white dress king. So I'm gonna go bluff.
Yeah, bluff. Exactly as you identified, the fathers were more rough with the boys and talked about more emotions with the girls. Tough or Bluff, Berto? Disadvantaged teens who believe American society is unfair have a greater risk of low self-esteem and risky behaviors. Tough or Bluff? Disadvantaged teens who believe American society is unfair have a greater risk. So it's not whether or not society is unfair. So they have a belief that American society is unfair. These disadvantaged teens have a greater risk of low self-esteem and risky behaviors. Tough or Bluff?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the movies. I've seen Stand and Deliver. I've seen Dangerous Minds. I've seen all the movies. And in those movies, it's clear that the disadvantaged teens to believe that, what's the point anyway? Society doesn't care about us. So they ended up doing risky behavior. However,
you've seen 16 Candles, and a lot of privileged white kids also do a lot of risky things.
So I'm going to go bluff.
Yeah, it's bluff. Disadvantaged teens. Wait, is it bluff? When lower class and minority teens understand the unfairness of American society, they tend to engage in less self-blaming, and thus they have higher self-esteem. So, when you're a disadvantaged teen, so you're disadvantaged and you're experiencing unfairness, and you study American society, or you're told by a mentor or a teacher or something, or a parent, that, look, you're being treated unfairly, and here's why. Because American society sucks. Then the kids have higher self-esteem and engage in less externalizing behaviors.
That's fascinating, because if you think about it, a lot of those shows I mentioned go the other direction. They're like,
you can do it.
You can't blame society. You can't blame. You can do it.
Right.
Yeah, you might have a rough time at home, but you can do it. Whereas if the show was, more realistic, I guess, they would be like, you're right. You are a disadvantaged teen, and it is not fair.
Right.
And but here's the information that might help you.
Right. And this runs counter to I don't know what you call it, the bad side of politics, where they'll say that all of our problems today are due to the, libtards.
PC culture.
Yeah, talking about constantly how black people are treated unfairly when they're treated just fine. And when you have this victim mentality, it creates people who are lazy and they just give up because society is unfair. And right here
you
we
can
see,
only be a slave if you want to be.
Right. And right here we have a study showing that it's actually the opposite.
Exactly.
Tougher Bluff, Berto. Brain training games like Lumosity. Do you remember this? This
Luminosity, right? Or is it
Lumosity? I don't know. Brain training games on your phone have been shown to increase cognitive performance. Tough or Bluff?
I wish. I feel like I did a lot of that like 10 years ago. I was like taking IQ tests, or not IQ tests exactly, but those fake IQ tests online, like, improve your IQ, whatever. I would do those a lot because I was thinking like, I want to stave off Alzheimer's and things. Now, I do think that keeping your brain active, in fact, there are studies that show that higher education has a correlation with lower incidence of dementia and things. But I'm going to say that just playing those brain games doesn't necessarily increase your, I'm going to go Bluff.
It's tough. These apps do help your cognitive performance, but the prevailing consensus is that these games don't work any better than any other video game. So if you play any video game,
stimulate your brain is what you're saying.
Essentially. It's like you don't need to play a cognitive performance specific video game. You can just literally play the dumbest. You could play, Candy Crush, and that also increases your cognitive performance. Yeah.
That's surprising.
Tough or Bluff, regardless of your physical activity, if you think you're a couch potato, you could hurt your health. Tough or Bluff. So regardless of how physically active you are, if you believe that you are a lazy couch potato, this could hurt your health. Tough or Bluff, Berto?
You know what? I'm going to go tough. I'm a believer that if you, and I've seen it in myself, that if your brain tells you something, it's hard for you to convince yourself otherwise. Like I've seen this with anxiety and with other things. It's like, if you're like, I'm not going to do well in that thing. It's like, yeah, you're going to, like perfect example. When I was playing in a band early on, especially, not so much when you and I played, I was a lot better about this. But when I started playing out, man, I would be like, okay, I know I'm going to be super nervous and I know that it's going to be trouble and I know I'm going to have singing issues. So I'm going to have to get everything right. And you know what would happen every time? I'd be super nervous and I would have singing issues. So yeah, I'm going to say that believing that you're a couch potato actually harms you physically in some way.
Yeah, it's tough. Researchers found that people who believed that they were less physically active were up to 71% more likely to die during the survey's. So not just like a little bit of a problem, but 71%.
How much?
71% more likely to die. Now, the likelihood of dying during this research study was say it's 1%, but a 71% increase goes from 1% to 1.7.
Oh my gosh.
And this held true even after controlling for participants' actual level of physical activity.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
So what does this mean? Does this mean that if you're a couch potato, you just say, I'm not a couch potato? No. What it means is that a lot of other things are probably coming into play, like your self-esteem or depression level. If you have low self-esteem or you're depressed, you're more likely on a survey to say, yeah, I am a couch potato, even though you might not be categorized as such anyway.
That's incredible.
Let's see. I have so many Tougher Bluffs, Berto. Let's just finish the last few minutes here with just us rambling. So I've been doing Tougher Bluffs for 12 and a half years. And for a while, it was mainly on the podcast. We would do Tougher Bluffs, right?
Right.
And as soon as I would read them on air, I'd delete them. And I would just say, okay, delete from this Word doc that I have. And over time, I would find myself wanting to come up with good tougher bluffs for some other purpose, like a best of episode or something like that. And so then I started keeping them. So I have 237 pages of tougher bluffs in this doc.
Oh, wow.
This Word document is 237 pages, font 11, by the way.
Wow.
And the other thing is back in the day, all I wanted to do was do the podcast, but eventually people would be like, you got to have a Facebook page. You got to have a website. You got to have, and I'm like, I don't want to have a website. I don't want to have Facebook. It's like annoying to me. Well, on the Facebook page, once I got it sort of up and running, I found that pretty much no one was going to our Facebook page. This is early days of Facebook. And so one of the things I thought up early on was like, well, what if I posted a tougher bluff on the Facebook page? And I thought, well, what do I call it? And I thought, well, what if I did it on every Tuesday and I called it Tuesday Tougher Bluff? So for probably 9 years, every frickin' Tuesday, I have been posting a tougher bluff, and
incredible.
I have to keep this huge document because when I wake up Tuesday morning, I have to immediately post something. I don't have time to do a bunch of research and look up research articles. So it's actually
and you don't want to duplicate.
Right. And so in this document, I have all these little demarcations saying like, this was used. So there's two designations. There's one that it says PIS, P-I-S, which means I said it on the air. And then I have another one that just says FB, which is Facebook, meaning I used it on Facebook. And and it's hard to come up with a good tougher bluff. Like if you read a research article, you can look at it and go like, how do I turn this into a snappy tougher bluff that's interesting? Like you can come up with a true or false question for anything. True or false, my favorite color is green. Like no one cares because they have nothing to grab onto. They're just stabbing in the dark. You know what I mean?
Okay, Honda, tougher bluff. John Leguizamo has appeared in over 76 films.
Well, let's see. So this is good because 1, I love John Leguizamo. 2, I'm interested in the answer. 3, I have a little bit to grab onto because I've been following his career. Obviously, I haven't seen over 76 films with him in it, but he's been working since he was a teenager, and he is now like in his. I think he's almost 60 years old. He might even be 60. And he's been in movies like Moulin Rouge. He was in The Mandalorian, by the way, season 2. He's been in all sorts of stuff. And I can imagine, given his personality, that he would do at least 2 films a year. And he's not afraid to do smaller roles, too. And he has a lot of range. He can be like the hard cop or the goofy guy. He was in Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo.
And he was even in Super Mario Brothers, the movie.
Interesting. So so as you give me that hint, that means it's like, my God, if he's in all those things. So I'm going to go tough. Yes, more than 76.
You're so 100% wrong. It's bluff. It was over 75.
Yeah. See, that's a terrible tougher bluff.
It's a Berto tougher bluff.
Yeah, Berto meant to do that. Berto. So, and like earlier, I did a tougher bluff where I said you're twice as likely to blah blah blah, and it was bluff. It was only 1.2. So,
right. So I usually good because it's
you have to have the numerical difference enough so that it isn't like, well, okay, it feels bad that I got that wrong. Anyway, well, what do you mean? So how many films has he done? 76?
No, I'm obviously being ridiculous because all the Wikipedia says is over 75, which, by the way, could still be over 76.
Yeah, right.
I was giving the example of like the worst.
Yeah.
But it's a fun thing because I used to, as you know, when I used to come up with tougher bluffs at first, they literally were like that.
Yeah. Well, me too. When I first, it's a really hard thing that I didn't realize. And I listen to other podcasts and they'll do stuff like this where they'll do like a trivia game, and coming up with the perfect set of questions, trivia questions, is actually a very learned art form that I feel like I have learned the hard way over 12 and a half years, because you just see the look on people's faces.
Yeah.
One, when you ask a question that they're just completely not interested in, or two, when you give them the answer and they actually feel physically hurt that you got it wrong, that they're like, oh, well, I don't know, or if you ask a question where it's debatable, like where you say something like let's say, back in the day, we would come up with Tough or Bluff. We'd say something like, John Leguizamo has never been in a movie about spies.
Oh, right. But that's debatable.
Right. But it's like, but the person derived that from their just limited knowledge of John Leguizamo. And then when you
their
say,
own opinion.
Yeah.
Like
And then when you say, Bluff or Tough, the person's like, it's tough, as far as I know, he's never been in a spy movie. And you're just like, it's a weird thing where you lose trust. Like when you lose trust for the game master, you now don't want to play anymore. You know what I mean? It's demoralizing to play with someone like that.
Yeah, another category, because I think a lot of it is the opinion part. Because like I could say, John Leguizamo is one of the top 3 most important Colombians.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
according to who?
I mean,
right. Yeah. So, Berto, final word. 2020. This is probably the last time you and I are gonna be on the podcast together for 2020. I think. Well, no, I don't know. Who knows?
We might do a reaction on Monday or something.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know. It's a good possibility that this is the last time you and I are going to be talking on the air for 2020. Final word. 2020, Humberto.
Personally, this has been a year that's been a combination of amazing feelings and terrible, terrible things to deal with, health-wise for me, health-wise for the world. Being separated from my family, not being able to see my Colombian family, especially my 90-some-year-old grandparents, as they've been iller and sicker, and my grandma took a fall. So mentally hard. And of course, I'm preaching to the choir out there, because I'm sure people have lost people and have, and we also lost people in my family, not to the disease, but to other things. And at the same time, man, it's a gift to be alive, and I'm here, and I get to enjoy moments, and I'm working on things that I care about. I enjoy doing this podcast with you, and every time we do it, that's enjoyable, and it fills my little meters up, which is great. I'm enjoying writing my book. I'm finally at the point. It started last year, but it really developed this year, where I actually enjoy the process. I always saw the process as a chore, but I wanted to write, whereas now I actually enjoy it. So just finishing it will be like when we recorded a CD. The finishing will be its own reward. So, on the balance, as horrible as it's been, I'm still thankful, which is weird, but I'm still grateful for everything.
Yeah, I don't know if I could really add anything unique to what you said, other than to say that today we just reached 200,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yikes, dude.
Which has a rhyming feature with 2020.
Yeah, that's surreal.
But yeah, this year has mostly sucked for just the reasons you said, and loneliness and demoralization, the rise of ridiculous conspiracy theories in the mainstream, and the fighting, and just things that some need to happen, some don't, and it's I just hope that when history looks back 5-10 years from now at the combo between 2020 and 2021, that 2021 is like this obvious awesome year where they're celebrating, the difference between 1944 and 1945, where 44, it's unclear if the Allies are going to win the war. And then 45, you have the winning of the war, the Allies. But this acknowledgement of like, so many people have died, and let's rebuild and let's try to learn. And what did we learn? And let's be good to each other. Why? Because we deserve it. We really, really do. Or wait, I screwed that up.
Oh, and you also.
It just couldn't end any better than that, Berto.